In this video I'm talking about the song So It Goes by the Verve, and it's a fantastic atmospheric track, really nice guitar part in quite an unusual tuning. But I have to confess that I'm not the biggest Verve fan. I mean, I like their music. I think I bought Urban Hymns when it came out and I quite liked that, but I never really took it any further. And then recently a couple of people whose opinions I really trust on music were saying, yeah, the Verve are brilliant, you've really got to get into them, particularly their earlier stuff. And I found myself getting into the record A Northern Soul, which is the album from which this track is taken. Let me begin by playing through a bit of the song for you. And the original recording is quite loose and jammy, so I'm just going to jam my way through it. Not going to be too fussy, though I'm going to try and stay reasonably faithful to that original recording. Let me do that, then I'll take you through how to play the song. So there we have it. I do really like this guitar part. It's moody, it's really nicely put together. And as I said, it's taken from the album A Northern Soul, which is the Verve's second album, came out in 1995. And I really got into this record. Usually when I'm listening to records, I'm looking for songs and melodies. That's usually what grabs me. And there are songs and melodies on this record, but you have to dig quite deeply to find them. I think this is a record that's more about mood and atmosphere. I don't know how this record was recorded, but I like to imagine the band late at night in the studio just jamming for hours and hours until these songs materialised. The electric guitar parts on this track played by McCabe, and that's a name that you don't hear quite so much these days, at least I don't hear it so much. And I think that's a bit of a shame because he belongs right up there amongst the best British guitarists of this kind of period. So people like Bernard Butler, Graham Coxon, the guys from Radiohead, and I think he belongs in that kind of company. He's got the same kind of striking and distinctive style as all of those people. And I thought it would be quite a straightforward process figuring this one out. And to start with, I was playing this in standard tuning. And it can be done just about in standard tuning. I've seen a couple of versions online where it sounds really nice in standard tuning, but when I was doing it, there was just something that didn't feel quite right. And I had a feeling that there was some kind of alternate tuning going on. So I did a bit of careful listening. And eventually I think I cracked what was going on with the tuning, and as soon as I had that in place, then the whole guitar part seemed to fall into place a bit more naturally. So let me take you through what I think is going on. Let's start with the tuning, and the tuning that I've arrived at is D, G, D, G, B, E. So 4 strings are the same as standard tuning. I've just dropped the lowest 2 strings down a whole step. So I've tuned the low E string down to a D, and I've tuned the A string down to a G. So you've got this kind of, I suppose it's a G6 sound, a G6 tuning. I'm not sure how common that is. I can't think of any other songs in that particular tuning. And it could be with this one that the low E string is still an E. This string isn't used very much at all in the song, so you can play the tune by keeping the 6th string in standard tuning, in which case you just need to tune down the A string to a G. An interesting question is, how do you know whether something is in an alternate tuning or not when you're trying to figure out a song? And that can often be quite difficult to determine. You really just have to do some careful listening and listen out for clues. So if you're listening to a song and you can hear some pitches which are lower than standard tuning, then you know that at least one of the strings is going to have to be tuned down lower. Maybe you can hear a low E flat or a low D. And then I suppose you're just listening out for the character of particular open tunings, and each tuning has got a character to it. So you get an instinct for that as a listener and as a player when you become more experienced. In the case of this track, the giveaways for me were some of the open strings. If you listen out for the open strings, and in particular this 5th string here, which is tuned down to a G, you can hear that droning away through a lot of the track, and there's some stuff that would just be impossible to play in standard tuning. And often you know you're right when things start to feel good on the guitar. I mean, players when they write songs don't deliberately make things difficult for themselves, and often open tunings make things a bit easier, and things just seem to sit nicely on the guitar when you get them in the right tuning. Once the tuning is in place, the main riff, the verse riff, comes together quite quickly. It's mainly just played with open strings, so just going through those open strings, strings 5, 4, 3. The important thing here is to get a feel for the rhythm. So the note on the 4th string, that D note, is actually on the beat. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we've got this little walk up and down again. So quite a bluesy sound this. We're using these little 6th shapes. So this one here. So 2 on the 4th string and 1 on the 2nd string. Just hammering into that from an open string. And then sliding up into this shape here. So 3rd fret on the 4th string and 3rd fret on the 2nd string. And then just sliding back down again. So, and then back to the open strings. Rolls round on itself really nicely, this riff, I think. And then you can just occasionally hear some variations where he's going up a little bit higher. So nice kind of dissonant sound up here. We got the 5th fret on the 4th string, 6th fret on the 2nd string, and then just allowing the open top string to ring as well. So that's essentially the verse riff. Nick McCabe, I think, one of these players who doesn't like to play things twice the same way. So there are loads of little nuances and variations throughout this recording. I'm not going to get into all of those, but this is the essence of the main riff, I think. let's look at what I'm going to call the chorus part now. If the song is in G, for the chorus we're moving up to C, which is the 4 chord, and each of the choruses is again slightly different, but the first chorus starts like this. So we're at the 5th fret here. I'm just hammering down at the 5th fret on the 5th string from the open string, open 3rd string, and then 5th fret on the 2nd string. And then we've got this. So we've got lots of these little 2-note shapes in this song. I'm going to call these tenths because these pairs of notes are 10 notes apart in the major scale, so an interval of a tenth. It's the same kind of thing that crops up quite a lot. You get it in Blackbird, for instance. It's that kind of doesn't work in this tuning. Blackbird in the I quite like that. Maybe I should start a new channel playing classic songs in the wrong tuning. I would watch that, I think. Anyway, back to the song. So as I said, we're dealing with these 10th shapes. So we've just done this, and then we've got this shape here. So 7 on the 5th string, 6 on the 2nd string. So it's kind of a minor 3rd sound or a minor 10th, and then just moving that down 3 frets. More of this stuff. So we've got that minor shape going to the major shape, and when it's the major shape we've got the 5th fret on both of those strings, and then to the previous shape, and some open strings in there as well. Then we're back to this. Tenths, but this time we're climbing up the neck. So we've got this shape, up 2 frets, then we've got the 2 notes at the 10th fret, and then up to the 12th fret, again with some open 3rd string in there. And then we're just walking down with more of those same shapes. Major, major, minor, minor, major, I think major there, and then back into the main riff again. That's the first chorus. Let me put that all together for you. So the second chorus is similar but a little bit different. It starts in the same way. Then it goes like this. Reminds me a little bit of some kind of country blues acoustic stuff, this tune actually, with this tuning. But we've got this. So it's sliding from 2 to 4 on the 5th string, open, open, 3 on the 2nd string, and then over onto the 6th string. So I'm sliding from 3 to 5, and then a pair of open strings. As I said, I've decided to tune the low E string down as well. You could do that in standard tuning and just play at the 1st and 3rd frets if you don't want to retune that string, but it feels kind of right to have that low D for this song. So back to this. And then we're going up again with more of these tenth shapes. And we're just hanging around at the 12th fret on that shape. Then there's a bit of a break and there's some kind of atmospheric stuff, so something like that. And then we're into the guitar break, the guitar solo. I do love this guitar break. It's quite easy to play once you know how, but it's got really striking use of open strings. It's a really unique sound, I think. So it goes like this. So we're hammering into a series of notes. So the notes we're hammering into are these. We've got 9 on the 4th string, then 10 on the 3rd, 8 on the 2nd, and 10 on the top string. But all of those we're hammering into them from the open string. So pick the open string and hammer down. And I'm using my second finger to do all of those hammer-ons just because I can get the strongest hammer with that finger, I think. And then we've got just this F note in the gap, so could play it there, could play it there as well if you wanted to. You can have that open 5th string droning away too. Just varying the rhythm and some of the subtleties in this phrase as he goes along, so it's never played quite the same way twice. Changes the rhythm to triplets at one point, which is very nice. I think that's it for the main guitar parts in this track. Yes, there is some more stuff going on towards the end of the tune. It's a 6 or 7 minute tune and there's some quite crazy stuff going on towards the end. I'm not going to transcribe all of that stuff note for note, I'm afraid. But what I suggest you do is just have a play around in this tuning, use those droning strings, use some of these double stops and single notes and see what you can come up with. I mean, it's kind of a lot of Mixolydian type stuff, I think. So and some more of those 6 shapes perhaps. And I think at one point he gone out of tune here, sorry. Going into this little 7th chord shape. So I've got 9 on the 4th string, 10 on the 3rd string and 8 on the 2nd string. And perhaps more of those 10th shapes that we had earlier on in the tune. I suggest you just play around and see what you can come up with. Allow me to talk a little bit about the gear that I'm using today. Now, I don't actually know that much about Nick McCabe or what he would have used on this record. I'm sure there are some McCabe nerds out there who will tell me exactly what he used on A Northern Soul, but I'm really just going with my ears here and trying to get as close as I can to the recording with the gear that's at my disposal. And if you listen to the recording, it's quite a warm, full sound that he's getting, so the Les Paul seemed like the obvious choice for a guitar. So I'm using my Les Paul here. This is a 59 reissue Les Paul, and the amp I'm using is my Marshall Studio Vintage series. There's actually quite a surprising number of tonal options with this amp. It's a Plexi inspired Marshall, and you've got 2 channels. You've got the high treble channel and then the normal channel, and then you've got 2 inputs for each of those channels, so the top and bottom. So you've got 4 sounds there, and then you can also get into patching the 2 channels together as well. But today I decided to go into the normal channel top input. That's just what seemed to work best for this particular track. Also on the recording I'm detecting a slight chorusing sound on the guitar, and I don't know whether on the mix there's been some processing done to it, kind of widening and thickening the sounds. So that's something I may well play around with inside the computer as well. But this is the sound that I've got in the room without any computer or mixing trickery, and I think it sounds pretty good just as it stands. So that's it for this video. I hope you found it interesting. I certainly found it interesting putting this video together and learning this track. It was a new track to me up until very recently. If you're interested in tab, I'm going to tab out the main bits to this song and put those up on my Patreon page. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time.